Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're just getting kicked off here. Make sure my AirPods work and we will see. Nope. All right, Jana, Larry, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Lucy. James is coming on. We have some people on Facebook. We're good on Facebook, right? All right, perfect. Let me pull up my slideshow. We'll have David PICKRON from Rent Perfect here in a few minutes. I'm just gonna go over a few things to kick everybody off. Let's see. I'm gonna share my screen. So we got the comment box. If you have any questions, feel free to drop questions in the comment box. If you're on Facebook, drop some questions. We have Rosa and Molly online as well, so we'll be able to get those questions over to me so I can answer them, or even have David answer. So this is the AZREIA, Not Another Lunch and Learn. We do this every Wednesday from 12 to 1. We bring on new guests every week, just kind of pick their brain, kind of see what they're doing in their respective markets and their businesses. And so we could all learn a little something. So this week we have David PICKRON of Rent Perfect. And then we'll have, if you go on the AZREIA.org calendar, we have the list of upcoming events you could always check out. Welcome, James. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. See what Zoom, we get like all these boxes everywhere. You gotta navigate. All right, let's see. Everyone see my screen? We're good. If you guys don't mind, if you want to put your video on, that's cool too. Kind of make it like a networking event as well. Let's see. Molly, you can see my screen good?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So let's get into presentation mode. Perfect. So once again, welcome. If you're just logging on Facebook, here on Zoom, welcome to Not Another Lunch and Learn. Our mission here at AZREIA is to provide our state of Arizona with networking opportunities, support for your real estate business, and education opportunities so you can grow and build your real estate investment career. Just kind of jump in up here at AZREIA, we do have a yearly membership program. So the first option is our standard option, which is $100 a year. And what happens on the $100 a year program, you just pay a la carte to each event, whether it's a networking group, subgroup, training class. You just pay a small fee to enter. Otherwise, $100 a year, you have access to all benefits that AZREIA has to offer. And then we also have, let's see, our Plus membership, which is $239 a year. And then you can attend all the subgroups and networking groups at no cost. So really standard package. If you're not really going to be that active, maybe 5, 6, 7 times a year. If you're going to be highly active, going to all the events and networking, I highly recommend the Plus membership. So that'll be $239 for the year on that. And as either program, whether membership level you're at, we have the largest discount program incentive with Home Depot. So by having your membership hooked up to your pro account at Home Depot, you do get 2% cash back on all your purchases over the year. You get 20% off all your liquids and paints. We have appliance discounts, cabinet discounts. We have a lot of different benefits with Home Depot. Monday, August 8th is what we call our monthly meeting. So on the second Monday of every month, we all get together at Venue 8600. It's our bigger event. We do a market update and market news recap. We do an association update, let you know what's going on around AZREIA. And then we always have a special guest speaker or educator with us every month. So August 8th, we're going to have Jack Bosch discussing flipping land and lots with us. So that'll be August 8th at Venue 8600. Then the next day, we shoot right down to Tucson, do the same setup just with our Tucson members. So if you'd like to go there, more than welcome. Phoenix Real Estate Club is what we do on the 4th Tuesday of every month. So we invite everyone here because at the main meeting on the second Monday, we talk a lot about the market and what's going on. So we throw a lot of information at you. We have the trade show, all our business associates are there. You just learn a lot of information at the monthly meeting. So what we ask is take the information and experiences you're having in your business, meet us at the Phoenix Real Estate Club on the last Tuesday of the month, and let's discuss your deals, right? We have last month, I think we had like 55, 60 people there. We're all discussing our deals. There's people doing mobile home deals, fix and flips, luxury, land, it's just a wide spectrum of all types of deals. It's really good as an investor to kind of see what's going on out there. So we also do power networking, where we all break out into groups of 3 or 4 for about 5-6 minutes, gives everyone an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit closer, exchange business cards. And also one of the main questions in that group that you have to answer is, what is your need for your business? And you get together and have a mini mastermind in those 6 minutes to see what the other investors in the room can do to help your business and get you moving forward. So followed by that, we have the have and want section where everyone, it's optional. You get the opportunity to stand up and say your name, phone number, let us know what you have in your business and what you want for your business. And you got 50, 60 people in the room that you're able to tell this to. And then you start watching everyone go, and you got a contractor, you have an electrician, you have a landlord, a flipper, you have a wholesaler, and everyone just kind of connecting the dots as they go around the room. It's very powerful. We also share that list with you via email, so the rest of the database can see your haves and wants as well, and on our forums on our website. And then we wrap it up with an investment discussion, just a brief overview of what we discussed at the main meeting, and we open it up for more of a conversation, right? We maybe 5-6 slides, and we'd like to see what everyone's experiencing themselves, and kind of get everyone's in the trenches outlook, so to speak. So that's the Phoenix Real Estate Club. So I highly recommend going to the monthly meeting and the Phoenix Real Estate Club. I'd love to see you there. So then we have Saturday, August 8th and 9th, Jack will be with us talking about flipping land. So he's going to spend the rest of the week with us. He's going to be with us on Saturday, August 13th for a full day. And he's going to break down and take a deep dive in how to fix and flip, flip, no fixing there, it's just land. So we're going to talk about finding the land, getting at super cheap discounts. I mean, he's locking properties up from 5% to 20% of the value, flipping them for 40 to 60%, none of his own money, leveraging seller carryback. So 9 to 5, he's going to break down everything on this list. Then if you choose to just hang out with Jack all day on Saturday, the Wednesday before on August 10th at our office in Central Phoenix, we do what's called a drill down. It's 2 hours. Jackson and just take another deep dive into seller financing. That model is going to be very important, whether it's for houses, land, or no matter what it is. So understanding how to seller finance is going to be key. So if you attend on Saturday, you get to go to this class for free. So that's Wednesday, August 10th. As you know, if you check out our calendar at AZREIA.org, we have subgroups. So we have volunteers for every aspect of real estate, every strategy. We have an active investor that's been in the business 5+ years, and they are volunteering their time for 2 hours a month to hang out with you and provide a networking space for you to talk about fixed and flipping, shared housing, landlording, beginners group notes. So you get to sit there with an experienced investor to answer your questions and meet other people interested in that topic. So it's a great networking opportunity for you. The AZREIA show, we're on episode 33 with Donna. She's a newer real estate investor, longtime real estate agent. She explains to us how she did her first deal. She went to Marcus and I's wholesale class, and within 2 months, she made a $75,000 assignment fee. So it was very exciting to see her success. So check out that video with Donna, and also our guest today, David PICKRON, as he is on the AZREIA show as well. So after this, if you like what you hear, you can learn more about him on the AZREIA show. So that's what I have for you. So thanks for the first few minutes of listening to me and letting you know what AZREIA has to offer. We have David PICKRON of Rent Perfect here. Here's his slide with all his information. I'm going to just throw him on. We have a very casual conversation. So everyone on Facebook, on Zoom, just, I appreciate if you could share this, like this, but definitely if you have questions, we're here to help and serve you. Leave some comments. Molly and Rosa are on the line. They're going to get the questions over to me so we can get David to answer them. So otherwise, I got questions for you, David. So
Mike, how you doing today?
Wonderful, man. Thanks.
Awesome. It's good to be here on a little lunch and learn. I could be just somewhere else eating lunch, doing nothing, thinking about anything, or I could be here, with my fellow people, my fellow investors. I look at this bio of me, and yes, I'm a private investigator, and I've been doing this for a very long time. But I think the real short bio is bio is I'm just a fellow investor. I'm just like everybody else watching Facebook or on this call, just trying to make my little nugget, keep my family secure, survive this ever crazy changing world with regulation and economic factors that are kind of out of my control. And so just spend my day analyzing things and really trying to figure out what the best move is in for maybe not today, but maybe the next month, the next 2 months, the next 6 months, the next year. Where are we going? Right.
Yeah, man.
And, I keep hearing, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I just thought you've been on cruise control your whole career.
No.
No.
We're working.
I thought real estate investing was that easy.
We're working hard. In fact, my wife, to share something personal, asked me, Dave, when is enough? Mike, I don't know how to turn it off. Maybe I'm just a paranoid little investor that just keeps on trucking, and I probably should be on the beach a little bit more, like hopefully you guys are. But I love what I do. But enough about me. I mean, let's just really talk about where we're going. We keep hearing we're going to be going into a recession. Some people say we're already in a recession. But, I went out to eat the other night, and there was still a 20-minute waiting line to get into the restaurant. Now, we're in Phoenix, Arizona. I know it's not the same everywhere, but I was up in Montana last week.
Oh, nice.
Had the line, traveling through Utah, stopped at a spaghetti company, still a 20-minute line. And I see and I hear about we're in this recession. I'm filling up my gas on the way up there. It's clicking off at $100. I'm not even getting 3/4 tank nowadays. And I keep hearing, hey, we're in a recession. I read an article this morning that says rents are at the highest they've ever been in July 2022. So people are still raising rents. But I keep hearing of this future of, this recession is coming. It's kind of a little different. I don't think we've seen this ever in my lifetime. I'm in my 50s, and the last kind of big downturn we talk about was in 2008, 2009. That kind of happened overnight.
Okay.
This is kind of like we know it's going to happen, but is it happening, and when it's going to happen? And I hear some economists say 2023. I hear some say 50% it's going to happen. But with the craziness in the market right now, I think it's going to happen. I think it's really going to happen. And so, for those who are listening today, I'm a private investigator. I mostly do background investigations for clients to make sure that we're putting the right tenant into your rentals, right? And we've had a really good preview of who is going to survive tough times just coming out of COVID. So many landlords were not hurt by the eviction moratorium that the government gave us because they had the right tenants, right?
Okay. Yep. Makes sense.
If you have the right tenants, you almost don't care about the regulation. I'm not being affected by it. But if you have tenants that get caught up in it, all of a sudden you can evict. They're living in your home. It's very frustrating. I had countless conversations with clients saying, how can the government do this? What can I do? What are the workarounds? They're trying to figure it out. But here's what, after I analyze all of our data after this eviction moratorium, is the people who didn't get hurt were the people who had the right tenants. And now I'm not talking about they had the high FICO score. They had the long job, history. They had no criminal history. I'm looking at the right tenants in their complete totality now. I'm digging even deeper into my applicants than I ever have before. Because if I truly believe that rents are super high, but this economy is ready to go over the edge and people start losing their jobs, that super high rent is the first thing that's not going to get paid. Because that super high rent is squeezing people right now. They're more rental poor, house poor than they've ever been, right? They're not taking vacations. They're staying home watching cable, playing games with the kids. And most of the paycheck that used to be 33% to 50% of their income to pay the mortgage or the rent is now 50, 60, 70% to pay to keep the roof over their head, right?
You can jump in like, no, that's a huge stat there. And that amazed me when I first started becoming a landlord. I think, was it 30% was of a tenant's income goes to us as landlords.
Yes, yes.
And you're saying it's higher now, 40, 50%?
It's absolutely higher. In fact, the last 4 homes I have rented, I've rented to multi-generations because they needed to bring grandma's social security number into the income. They needed to combine, and more people are living in tighter quarters. And we see this in Japan as real estate gets super expensive. People just move in together and they make it work. Or not as spread out. But I'm really nowadays, I'm really drilling in on, now, first of all, let me just put a little disclaimer out there. When we analyze applicants, we don't just look at the FICO score and say, that's good. We just don't look at the criminal record and say, that's good. The landlord history. And we have to look at it all of it, and then decide if this matches and fits our criteria. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to talk about one specific part that I'm really looking in right now, but I don't want you to think that's the only thing I'm doing. That's the reason I tell you that.
Well, can we jump in? Like, so our thought today, like the topic was, how will your tenants survive a downturn? Right.
So this is where I'm jumping in to answer that question. Right.
Got it. So what is like, tell us like, how do I say this? Like, what's involved in that? Like, what's the overall thing you're going to break down for us right now? Like,
okay. So overall, we're going to look at their history, how they handled the COVID era. Okay. To make sure that, man, if they got through COVID, they're probably going to get through this recession. Okay. So the last 2 years of their history for me right now, super important. If they were the ones that lived in a house, didn't pay rent for 5, 6, 7, 8 months, there's a good chance that if we go into a recession, they're going to do the same thing. Now, keep this in mind, Mike. The government already once said we can do an eviction moratorium. That's never happened in our lifetime, right? When the economy gets bad enough, why wouldn't they go right back to that moratorium? They've done it once. They got away with it. The Supreme Court weighed in on a little bit, but really didn't drop the hammer. Why wouldn't they say, oh, we're great politicians, we're coming back and going to implement an eviction moratorium now? Now it's maybe not through CDC for health, but it's through Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to make sure we protect people. I mean, who knows what they're going to do, but you've got to be prepared for that, right? So we're really looking at how they handled the last 2 years. But more than that, I'm specifically right now looking at not only income, okay, not only what their income ratios are, but I'm looking at where are they working? What jobs are they doing? What jobs survive a recession? Okay. I am no economist. I'm kind of a common sense investor. I have nothing to back this up, article wise or whatever, but I will tell you, food prices are high, wages are high. We're going to see restaurants go down in this first wave. People are going to pull back. When I take a family of 4 out right now and I'm clipping next to $80 to $100 a meal, and I feed my kids 3 times a day, right? All of a sudden I start eating at home a little bit more. We're pulling out cereal boxes, which now are like $5 a box. It used to be $2.50, $6, $7 a box. So where are people going to pull back? And that's what we have to say is, how are our tenants going to survive this? Where are they going to pull back, and where is society going to pull back? So I would say, number one, if you have somebody in the service industry, a waiter, anybody like that, their jobs are probably going to be on the line, because that's the first sector that's going to go, because people are going to take their income and now use it in a more logical way to support their family. And they're going to find a cheaper way to get food. They're going to do their own dishes. They're going to hang out at home a little bit more. So I'm looking at certain jobs now. Maybe the income's there, maybe the FICO's there, And like I said, I'm not making every decision based on the job you're in, but it is something that adds to my whole equation. All right.
Yeah.
So we used to just look at income and we didn't really care what the job was. Never, just you're employed, you've been employed 2 years, great, great, great. But now
Yeah.
we're looking at, we're breaking it down even further.
That's great.
So what do you think some jobs are that survive a recession?
Well, I follow you, man, so I know. So I pay attention. So I was actually going to try to ask you that question, but
so people still are going to get sick, right? And in fact, we see mortality rates go up in a recession. And so more and more people have more and more stress on them, and more people get sick. So healthcare workers actually go up in a recession. So I had a home down in Tucson. A gal came in. She was on the threshold of a few of my items, not a deny, but just kind of like, I'd like you a little stronger here or there. But she was a nurse. And I knew that with that shortage of nurses we have out here, and I think nationwide, I knew she would always have a job. And so though she was kind of in that what I call conditional range, I was weighing yes or no. I went ahead and said yes based on the profession she was in, nursing. Okay. People die, yet we don't see a lot of people working at funeral homes. But people who work at funeral homes are going to continue to have, a good job. Any kind of banking, people still need to bank. Any of the big professions, so the attorneys, the CPAs, companies are still going to need those services, right? But anything vacation-wise, not food is in grocery store. Those guys, at grocery store workers, is going to be great. But a restaurant worker, so think of the things that you don't have to do, but that you like to do, and just think of those things that are going to go away as you make decisions. Right.
I think another one you mentioned before was maybe along the lines of law enforcement is something that's always going to be around.
Well, and school teachers, right?
Yeah.
Law enforcement, school teachers. I mean, I used to look at people a little bit in my analysis and say, oh, you work for the federal government or for the city. Okay, you get good benefits. You don't make a lot hourly. They don't pay real well. But now all of a sudden, those guys are looking a little better to me because of the job security they're going to have, right?
Yeah.
Because we all realize that bad things happen to good people. We know that, right? We do our backgrounds and we're trying to look for that repeat criminal offender, but we can have a perfectly great person, great history, great job, and a recession can take them out. Losing their job can take them out, right?
So overall, secure jobs, law enforcement, healthcare, just places where people are not going to spend less money.
Yes.
Right.
Teachers. Right. You're still sending your kids to school during the recession. You still need, medical care. You still need police protection. But so those are
like the riskier jobs are, like you said, where people pull back on. Just to recap.
Absolutely.
Whereas,
absolutely. I've got a restaurant down the street that's just on the verge of closing, and I know them personally. In order to survive, they let go of all of their waiters, and they made you now order at the counter like you would do in this is a nicer restaurant. This is a nicer sit-down restaurant where you're used to having a waiter and then bring you water, and he just went to, listen, in order for me to survive, I've got to kill all of that, all of those wages. You now go into this finer restaurant. So imagine going into like Olive Garden, and you order up front by the register, and then you go find your table, and then they call out your number, but you're in a nicer establishment. Then he's asking me to tip at the counter because he's telling me I need to tip the cooks who are making all the food because I got to keep the kitchen full, but I'm kind of thinning out in the dining area.
Wow.
We're all survivors, and we're going to do what it takes to survive. So as landlords, we need to survive too. Now, another strategy that we're implementing now is, I just read this article this morning about rents are highest in July than they've ever been.
Okay.
But they're pretty dang high for us. I mean, if you're a landlord right now that owns multiple units, you should be pretty happy right now, right? We've kind of all got a raise in a way in the last 3 years. in most parts of the country, especially here in Arizona.
Yeah.
I've had rents go from 1,300 to 2,400 in the last 3 years. My mortgages didn't go up because I was smart and had those on a fixed rate, right?
Mhm.
So we should be doing pretty good. What is wrong with having that right person that matches the person we're talking about right now? What is wrong with lowering their rent? Say I went from 1,300 to 2,400. What's wrong with me lowering their rent to 2,000? I'm still up $700. I have a known tenant who pays, right? So I think we're going to see in the next year or two where we turn to our tenants and we really look at them, as I've always been preaching, as more of a business partner. How do we get through this together? Because if that person leaves, now there goes a month of restoring the property at $2,400 if you can get it done in 30 days and find a new tenant. But then again, who's going to be looking for a $2,400 mortgage as this economy is coming down too? So
can I jump in there? Like, so in regards to renting, so yeah, we're going into this recession, right? But then also, so talking about Arizona and Phoenix, we're different than most of the country.
Right,
so
we are.
We have these chip plants coming, electric vehicles, like we have all this great stuff about our state, in Californians, everyone moving here. So how do you think that dynamic is going to play with like, because that's the thing as a landlord, population job growth, right? Like buy a house in those areas. So how's that going to mix?
Well, I think most of those jobs, Mike, are people who are purchasing. Okay. They might come here and rent for the first 6 months to 12 months, but if they're landing that $80,000, $100,000, $120,000 job, they're probably going into the purchasing world, which the purchasing world actually takes rentals off the market for us here in Phoenix. So we're going to have less and less single family homes available to rent. I see those big jobs pushing more renters into apartment communities and not into single family homes. Okay.
Got it. Like
Now,
the luxury ones that they're building all over Central Phoenix with the gyms and the, the spas.
Absolutely. So there is this group in the middle that's they're financially strong, but for some reason or another, they're not purchasing a home. That's my group that I try to rent to. Those are, okay. But I have single family homes in Gilbert, probably worth $500,000 right now. I'm not down in the duplex, fourplex world in certain parts of town that are a little harder to run. That's a whole nother, to me, I don't have time. I think they're lucrative for some of my clients, but it's too much babysitting for me. So I just want to let you guys know the world that I sit in. I also have several 3 to 6 month short-term rentals that they're slowing down a little bit for me, because I used to have people buying homes and in between homes, and when people were moving, they needed a place to be just for a short amount of time. I'm seeing less and less people wanting a 3 to 6 month, and more people wanting a longer lease locked in with a rental rate so they can afford it. But my vacation rentals, my weekend short-term rentals, they're all rocking too. And a lot of those are about 2 hours outside of Phoenix. And people are saying, hey, listen, I don't want the $500 plane ticket for, 3 kids, me and my spouse, and we're spending $2,000 in plane tickets. They're saying, no, let's roll up, spend a couple $100 a night on a VRBO Airbnb up in Payson, Prescott, Flagstaff, and let's have our little getaway this weekend, and it's much more cost effective. And so I think your short-term 3 to 6 months are, as I see right now, are getting a little lighter, but your vacation rentals are still holding strong. But back to the concept of, I think we've been into 2 or 3 years of, and I want to say healthy greed. Greed always has like a bad connotation to it, but healthy investment, raise our rents. I think we need to shift our mindset now going into a recession. And I think we need to go into a little bit more survival. And it's counterproductive for us as investors to lower our rents a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm not saying just lower your rents across the board. I'm saying if you have the right tenant, why not lock them up for the next 2 to 3 years and get through this recession? So you make $400 less a month. That's $4,800 a year. If they move out, there's your $2,400 a month, rehab that you have to do, plus the paint, the carpet, and then you roll the dice on the new guy coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think a strategy is, if you're renting to somebody new, really look at their job, make sure it holds. And then I think we're going to go back to our tenants who are strong, who have those characteristics, and say, hey, we've had such a good relationship, we're business partners, we're going to lower your rent if we need to. Because a lot of investors, even maybe people that are listening to this, haven't been around in the years where we were all offering concessions. And if you don't know what a concession is, it's, we'll give you your first month's free just to move in. There's so much competition out there that we didn't have enough people to rent our places. We were too heavy in the housing market. Now we're way too thin, but there will be a day when they build enough apartment communities out here, and you see them, Mike, on every single corner. There will be a day where we have to start, balancing out again and getting back to fairness kind of on both sides. Right now, we're really leaning heavy on the landlord side, which is great for us, but it's not going to continue. I'm telling you that right now. So get ahead of it. Get ahead of it.
I think that's great. Brilliant idea, man. Yeah, because so what, you have to lower it a little bit. The turn, finding new tenants, just all that hassle, just lock it in now. And I love that.
Hey, we've had 3 or 4 or 5 years of glory, man. I mean, let's clap right on through it. It's been fantastic. Made a ton of money if you were positioned well. Now let's just go take the few years of lean and get ready for the next, just prime market that's going to come probably in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, I'm hoping, but we do have to survive the valleys, and the peaks in this market. And it just makes us change our mentality a little bit. So like I said today, rents are the highest. I haven't really seen the recession here in Phoenix on a day-to-day basis, but I know all the numbers, it's going to happen. So I'm just, personally planning on, it's going to happen. What am I going to do to survive it? And that's where I'm at today. I'm not going to wait until I lose my tenants to these jobs and I didn't think about it, right in the middle of it. I'm going to get ahead of it right now and position myself. So when that comes in my investment world, it won't even faze me.
So what about the person that's, so we kind of gave a strategy for someone that has tenants, and if they are good, let's lock them in. So let's say they're not good, or you're in the middle of a turn right now and you got to go find someone new. You just don't have that person to lock in right now. So do you put it out there, your property out there cheaper? Or do you still mark it up where it needs to be? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, here's my thoughts. What attracts cheap? So when I put my property out there and it's cheaper than everybody else, who's going to apply? Right? When we used to put our houses out there and we used to say, hey, first month's free, who did that sound really good to?
Yeah.
The guy that couldn't afford it, right?
Yeah.
The person that could afford it, no problem. I don't really need it free. I've got the money now. So I wouldn't go way below market, but I might go $100, $200 below market where your home is right now, and just kind of be, because you're still expensive. I mean, you're still expensive.
Yeah.
I had a gal at the bank yesterday tell me, she's like, you know what? This apartment community is raising my rent from $1,100 to $1,300. And she was so mad about it. I'm thinking you got rent right now for $1,100 or $1,300? You should be happy right now, even in these apartment communities. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't go super cheap. So just remember that strategy of having a tenant in there now who's the right one, who's going to survive all this. That's a little bit different than going brand new. Brand new out there, I would go under market just a little bit, but I would really vet them and I'd look at their job, as what we were talking about in the first place. And I would really make sure that, is this someone that's going to be with me for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years and be able to survive tough times?
So we reviewed the job, right?
Yeah.
So I think another topic we could talk about, maybe like, what do you look for, like on bank statements?
So we're going right down the same road. I'm like, number two, you have got to nowadays look at bank statements. Somehow in the past, that's become a taboo, and I don't know why it is. But bank statements are available on everybody's phone who banks nowadays. Okay. Now there's a certain segment that wants to pay cash and go to Walmart and cash their check and give you a cashier's check and isn't heavily banked. But if you're looking at a $2,400 a month rent, the chances are that person probably needs to have a bank account. Yeah. Right. So get bank statements. Now, anybody coming in and you're like, Dave, why bank statements? As a private investigator and as a screening company here at Rent Perfect, there has been no evictions filed starting in like May of 2020 through 2021. There's no evictions filed, right? There's eviction moratorium. You can hire me to go to the court and look as hard as I want, but there is nothing there. So we don't know if they paid their rent in the last 2 years or not, right? And if we call those landlords and they're still living there, they're going to say, oh, they're great. They're so fantastic. I'm sorry they're leaving. And in the back of their mind, they're going to be going, great, get them out of here. Okay. So bank statements show money in and they show money out. Mm-hmm. So going into a recession, we want to make sure that people are healthy enough, to handle this recession. So I verify income by bank statements. I verify rent payment by bank statements. And so I had a gal a couple months ago. She gave me her bank statements. I went through the last 12 months. I noticed that July and August of 2021, there was no rent coming out of her bank statements. And so I called her and I said, hey, listen, I'm not seeing rent coming out of your bank statements. And she said, oh, that month my husband paid it. So what do you think I did, Mike? Give me your husband's bank statements.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And if there's nothing to hide, I never get any pushback. When I get pushback on bank statements, it's because there's something to hide. But Mike, right now here in Arizona, I've got a line wanting to rent my home. If you don't want to give me bank statements, that's okay. That's because we're probably going to find something. Move on down the road next.
There you go.
We're not hurting here. So bank statements are huge right now because they're really showing us a lot of things we can't get that we used to be able to get, which is like an eviction search,
So what about because I think when you spoke at Garrick's, our subgroup for landlords, you guys were talking about there's other things you look for in a bank, not just evictions, right? And rent payment. There's like other things that you might look for within the bank statement that might be red flags. Is there anything?
Right. And so I try not to get too, oh, hey, how come you're spending a bunch of money at Chick-fil-A? You shouldn't be doing that. I try not to become a financial counselor to them.
Yeah.
Right. But, a lot of credit card payments. I mean, we see that on the bureau too, but we can see if they're paying their minimum on their credit cards or if they're paying more or they're paying them off. So with a credit bureau and a bank statement, there's a lot you can learn about people's financial, and it's getting into that personal world. I get that. It's getting really into the personal world, but I'm handing them over a $400,000 or $500,000 asset, and I'm going to get into your personal world. But after I find that right tenant, we're going to have a relationship for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Wow.
So some of them I've looked at in the last year. I've seen a lot of cash advances. I've seen them kind of, you can tell by their credit, their bank statement, how they're living. At the end of the bank statement every month, it's like to $2.95 until you can see their next paycheck coming in on the 1st. And that they're really cutting it tight. Yep. That will tell you that the first kid who breaks his arm or the first car accident or the first sickness or the first COVID spell, living that tight, you're probably going to struggle. And it's going to sound like this. Hey, can I pay you rent on the 5th? That's how it all starts, right? Hey, I don't have rent on the 1st. Do you care if I pay you on the 5th? I'll have it on the 5th. That's when my next paycheck comes in. And it just slowly that relationship slowly starts going the wrong way. I don't like to have those conversations with my tenants. I like, hey, rent's, paid online on the app and hope you're doing well and hope life is good. And, I like those kind of conversations, you know.
Yeah,
Maybe the occasional, the air conditioning isn't working. Okay, great. Let me get a technician over there. Those are all good conversations. The conversation of, hey, can you wait for rent is just one where all the red bells start going off saying problem.
that's like that should be like your Rent Perfect t-shirt. Can I pay you on run?
Totally.
Yeah. Cool. So what else? We got the bank statements. We got the job, the best jobs, how to look at a bank statement. I think credit reports. Is that something you discuss, kind of review too, or?
Yeah, I mean, we all start with kind of a score. I mean, we've been kind of conditioned to not really learn about those credit reports anymore. Kind of look at a score. 700 is pretty much people can buy a home, and we just kind of have these general deals. But I will tell you, there is something right now that's coming out from the Consumer Protection Bureau, and it's saying that if we give an adverse action letter and we use an algorithm in our decision, so we use a FICO score, which is really just an algorithm of their credit, that in our adverse action letter, we have to give a specific reason why they're declined. So it's no longer you have bad credit. It has to be you missed 2 Wells Fargo car payments on this date. And so they're really kind of making it a little bit difficult. So this is fresh off the wire. We're working on this right now in our program to make this easy to do with our clients. We're looking at this right now in our development. It should be out in the next week or two.
So is that in Arizona or is countrywide?
That's federal. That's federal. Yeah, there are another regulations coming down the pike that it's just, this one's not that big of a deal. But the problem is when you have to get into details with people, it's a little hard to say to a felon, hey, I'm not going to rent to you because you have 15 assault charges and now you have my name, my phone number, you kind of just want to say, oh, we've chosen not to rent with you and just stop the conversation there. But they're actually, no, listen, this fair housing says treat everybody the same. And then this Consumer Financial Bureau says individually assess everybody and say exactly why they weren't qualified at your property. Now that means everybody, if I deny somebody with 2 Wells Fargo car payments that aren't paid, now everybody that comes through my property, I have to remember, okay, if you have 2 Wells Fargo car payments not paid, I can't rent you either because I got to treat everybody the same. So this is new. They don't realize what they're doing to us, but we will get through this. We'll solve it. We've got our attorneys on it. And if you use Rent Perfect, you're just going to see a small change coming in the next week or two. That's going to allow us to abide by that regulation.
So Rent Perfect will be able to just kind of guide us through that process.
Absolutely. So you'll say, denied for credit, and then a little box will come up. What's your details? But I guess the reason I went off on this small little tangent was because we're going to have to start learning how to read credit bureaus again. This is going to make us start, instead of just focusing on that FICO score, going and actually looking at the credit bureau. And all it's going to say is, why is the FICO score 550? Okay, you have 3 collection accounts, right? So we're going to have to say credit wasn't up to par. You have 3 collection accounts.
Yep.
And the whole reasoning behind it, if anybody cares, is the Consumer Protection Bureau wants to educate people on what is keeping their score so low. So if they get denied for having 3 collection accounts, we educate them. You probably should pay your bills. That's their thinking. But I think that's mom and dad's role. That's someone else's role, not after the fact that affects us. And so anyways, credit bureaus are pretty much credit bureaus. They've kind of gotten together. Most of them like to use an advantage score, which means if they're a 600 on Experian, there's a 600 on TransUnion. They try to all kind of get together and try to get to the same scoring mechanism. It's a little confusing when you pull an Experian and they're 725 and a TransUnion's 550, and you're like, wait a minute, these guys pay their bills or not? So they've kind of come together on that. But no, credit bureaus haven't changed much other than this. They've gotten weaker. And the reason they've gotten weaker is about 3 years ago now, they took off liens, judgments, and within judgments are evictions, okay? So we used to be able to see people's tax liens, their civil judgments that they were sued, which includes evictions. Now we have to go find those in other areas, which we do as Rent Perfect. but there's less and less on a credit bureau. And if you go study, like online, and you put is US's scores, credit scores going up, there's all these articles about, oh, it's amazing, US has got better credit than ever before. Well, that's because we're taking off all this negative stuff that used to kill your score. So the behaviors haven't changed, but the scores have come up. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So, and everybody's praising how great we are in America. No. I mean, here's an example. When Rent Perfect reports rent payments through our portal, we can only report payments that were made. We can't report payments that were missed, because payments that were missed would lower people's credit score. And that's what we want to know as landlords, right? We want to know, hey, you didn't pay the rent. We want to know that. But it'll only let us give credit to the tenants, but not ding their credit as credit reporting agencies. So
what about like when you ask for a referral to maybe the previous landlord? Do you think that's effective in any way or worth it? Or do you recommend that?
I would never tell you not to do it, but you just have to know that the incentive of the person you're talking to is, if, the biggest thing you might hear right now is, oh, the market's really good, I'm selling my home, I wish I wasn't selling my home, they're so great.
Yeah.
You don't really know if that's true or not. You don't know if they're so bad that they just want them out, and if they tell you the truth, you're not going to rent to them. So you need to be really cautious about those conversations. You also need to be cautious about people's opinions. You should only ask, did they pay the rent on time? Was there ever an eviction filed against them? Did you return their full deposit? All of those are yes and no factual questions. How did they take care of the property? Well, maybe you have a landlord who's a total clean freak, and these guys were like semi-clean, but she sees them as totally dirty, and they didn't clean the room, and they didn't do this. I mean, you really want to get away from, when you're talking to prior landlords, any kind of subjective conversation of opinion. Just ask facts. You just need to stick to the facts.
Yep, makes sense. That's funny you said that about the what people wanting to move, right? I did that recently where we were taking on new tenants, and the owner where they were living was an agent. The market, this was a few months ago, so market was booming, and they're just like, oh, they're great. Oh my God, you're gonna love them. So, I hate to see them go, but I got to sell this house because I'm gonna make a lot of money.
Right. And I did sell a house about a year ago, and I will tell you, I really sold it because the HOA was just terrible. I was getting letters over and over, every little weed that came up. And what happened was that HOA president was the neighbor to my tenants, and he just had a vengeance for them. And he just came after them on every little thing. And I'm constantly sending notices. And they had like 5 kids. They were a family that married and lived together. And the kids were all teenagers. So they had a lot of visitors, had a lot of cars out front. It was just a very high active house. They always paid their rent. I thought that they were great. But, on a certain occasions, the kids would open up the second story window and hang out on my roof, which I didn't know about until obviously I got the letter. But there were things they were doing that I was like, guys, we really can't do this. But when the landlord called me where they were going, I legitimately did sell the house. I didn't lie about it. But
yeah.
And they were good tenants as far as paying their rent. But if they go to the next, they didn't ask the right questions. If they go to the next landlord and hang out on the roof and make the HOA president mad next door, they're going to have the same problem I had. But they were always right. They were always good on their rents. They relatively took care of the place, but they had a bunch of dumb, stupid teenagers that just caused them a lot of grief, but no one asked me that. No one said, hey, do the teenagers cause you a lot of grief? So I didn't have to answer that question. So I stuck with, they paid the rent, they took care of the property, and yes, I'm selling it. And I was, correct on all of those, but I wasn't going to offer. So I don't feel like I lied to a fellow landlord, but I wasn't going to offer a question that they didn't ask me because honestly, I wanted them out.
Yeah.
So maybe not even like we're meaning to do that as landlords, but we have a vision and a goal, and we want to make that happen. And so sometimes you can't trust, those prior landlords.
Love it, man. So I want to take the last few minutes here. As everyone can see, David's wealth of information. I've learned a bunch of stuff today. Learned a bunch of stuff on our last podcast. So just let's take a few minutes. Just tell us about Rent Perfect, what it is, how and why a real estate investor should have this. Yeah, just take it away.
Okay, so I'm not great at commercials. I'm not great at promoting, what we do as a president. But listen, as an investor, I can tell you, I have built this program really for me to be able to manage. Now I don't tell a lot of people this, but I am the president of Rent Perfect. I'm the president of a company called Crimshield. I'm the president of a company called AAA Landlord Services, AAA Photo Safety, and a company called XShed. If you Google me, I run a lot of companies, and I have 16 rental properties, and I don't use a property manager. I use my phone app or my program, Rent Perfect. It is my property manager, and it allows me to have a full day away from my property management, but simply and easily manage those properties. I collect about $32,000 a month in rent. If I were to pay a 10% property management fee, that would be $3,200 a month I was paying in a property management fee that I feel like my program makes me because I don't have to pay those fees. So let me just tell you a little bit about it. It takes a tenant from viewing your property, wanting your property, filling out an online application, to getting all the background reports, credit reports, all the information you need to make a decision. If you like what you see, you push a few more buttons. You have them sign a lease online. You have them pay rent online. You have them do a move in and move out inspection online. And if you require it, you have them buy renter's insurance online, which protects you from liability claims. So
and all this is housed on in your dashboard.
In your dashboard, whether it's on your phone or on your computer. I use it always on my phone. I'm always on the go, running everything from my cell phone. That means I have all of my tenants' applications. I have all my tenants' leases. I have all the ledgers of all the rent that they paid with me every second of the day. So if I need to look at anything at all, I have it on my phone, and I feel like, okay, great, I'm in control. I've organized everything where I have a very good idea about my rental portfolio right now. It hasn't always been like that. I've always been like, well, wait a minute, this client pays me rent in the mail on the 15th, and this one pays me on the 1st. And he comes to my home and he asks me for my bank account number, and he goes to the bank and deposits in my bank. And I used to have all these scenarios going on, which that unorganization in my head drove me to create a better way to do things. So now I have everybody pay online. I have everything done through this portal. And I hardly think about it, Mike. I hardly think about my rental portfolio all month long. And it just continues to rock and roll.
If there's a late payment or someone's late and they don't call, or is there like a reminder of some sort?
Yeah. So on the rent pay, it's nice. So 5 days before rent's due, let's say rent's due on the 1st, like most of us. On the 25th, rent is due in 5 days. The next day, rent is due in 4 days. The reason we do that is we want us on their mind. We want their landlord on their mind 5 days before rent's due. I want you thinking about me, right? So we send them a nice little email saying, hey, then they say rent's due today, rent's late tomorrow with a $50 charge. And we start showing them how much this is costing them without getting their rent in on time. I used to have a lady always ask me to pay on the 5th. I finally put her on this. I said, I'm no longer accepting it on the 5th. On the 5th, I had a late fee due, and she'd always give me just the amount of rent. And then in Arizona, you have to return the check and say, no, you owe me $50 more. And then I used to always think, is it worth my time to go back over there to tell her, here's your check back, you owe me $50 more? Do I just say, okay? But what I did is I trained her to pay me on the 5th, right? Well, now I put her on this system, and when it charges that fee and she goes, hey, Dave, can you waive that fee? I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry. It's the computer. I don't know how I play totally stupid and dumb and say, yeah, you might want to get that to me earlier next month. And since I put her on this, I've been getting paid on the 1st every single month for the past year, when for the past 2 years before that, she'd pay me on the 5th. So this just sets expectations, and it kind of controls the relationship with me and my tenants. And I don't have to call, hey, am I going to get rent? Oh, it's in the mail. No, I didn't get it today, right? The computer just constantly, and they get text too, by the way. So if they're not getting their emails,
Wow.
it's coming right in on their text. And, everybody reads every text everywhere they go. And so it might be a little harassing if you haven't paid your rent, but that's kind of what I want to do when you haven't paid your rent. I want to be a little harassing.
So as for AZREIA members, right? So how do we sign up? How do we use it? What's it cost? All that stuff.
Okay, so they can get an available link as REIA members through you. That is, and a lot of people misunderstand me here, so let me be very clear.
Okay.
It's 95 cents to sign up. One time, not a month, not a year, not every time you run a background. It is 95 cents just to create an account with us. Okay. It's less than what we used to spend on the Apple iTunes store for a song. It's 95 cents. I would make it free, but I want some people to at least have a little bit of skin in the game, a little bit, right? What's 95 cents? A tiny bit of skin in the game. So I'm not vetting a bunch of people that are never going to use us. So, but that's just for REIA members. It's more if you don't come through the REIA, and they have to get that QR code link through you, Mike. So it's on the website, I think at AZREIA, behind the scenes in the members area. If they sign up, it's 95 cents. He's like, well, David, how can you do all this for 95 cents? I make my money two ways. One is that the tenant pays me $44.95 to run their background, and they pay it directly to me. So I don't send out a bill and you don't have it. It is free to you, but they pay me directly. And what this creates is a relationship between Rent Perfect and your applicant. That means your applicant is buying their own background and their own credit check. They don't have to sign an application with you that gives you permission to go run it. They're going to give me permission to run it on them, and then they're going to share it with you. And when it shares through the Rent Perfect system, it's an authenticated copy. They're not coming into your office with printable docs that are doctored up and changed and, all that good stuff. And so when your applicants are paying me the money, if they have a problem with the application, who do you think they're calling?
Yeah.
Me, not you. I take a ton of customer service phone calls from these applicants that landlords no longer take anymore. And we help them through their application and their process. And we get them until your phone beeps and says they're done. Here's their credit bureau. Here's their other reports that you need. And so I make money there. And I actually said I make money in two places. Actually, you spend money in two places. I only make it there. The other one is if you use our rent pay feature, which is amazing, which saves me a ton of money. It's $10 a month to use our rent pay service. And that actually goes to our payment processor. That doesn't even come to me. I wish it did. But I take in 16 payments a month. I pay $30 a month because, let me explain to you how this happens. You can do unlimited payments per bank account. I have 3 LLCs I run my properties through. Okay. So I have 3 bank accounts. So I pay $10 per bank account to put multiple rent checks in each of those bank accounts.
Wow.
But I would pay 100. I would pay 200 to have all of that organized and done and off my mind. I would pay way more than that. So if $10 is holding you up, you really need to think about, okay, I get a check in the mail. I run it down to the bank. I stand in line. I give them to the lady. I mean, what's your time worth, right? I get my tenants go right from their bank account right into my bank account.
Or even just property manager, 10% right there. You know, they do all that, right?
Yeah,
so
10%. Yeah. Figure that one out, right? Yeah.
So that's amazing, man. And
so Mike, I'll just end with this. We started as a background investigation company because that's what I am. I'm a private investigator. When you come into Rent Perfect, you get assigned your very own private investigator. And then we built all these cool features around it. And then I had to sit back and realize I'm a whole landlord software suite, right? I didn't start that way, but that's where I ended up. A lot of my competitors that are $200, $300, $400 a month for the software fee, they started as a software company and then added a little bit of a cheap instant database background check component. And now you're paying a lot of money and you're not getting the information you need to make the right decision. So here's an example. If I go and I get a file in today, I can tell you if the person is being evicted this morning, if it was filed in the court. If you're using an instant database product, you're not going to know that for 6 months until it gets into their database. And it's too late because they already live at your property and you possibly could already be going through an eviction by the time you find out they had a prior eviction that would have helped you make that decision. And so that's just kind of what an investigative screening company does. You know, and you save money on property management, but you're going to save money on evictions and turns too, right?
Yeah.
So pay a little bit of, I mean, we're talking a tiny bit of money up front. It's like an insurance policy to save you all kinds of trouble on the back end.
Yep. So 95 cents as an AZREIA member. Yeah, the credit checks, you don't even have to pay. And I really like that because I'm a nice guy, I feel. And so when you see the tenant and you guys have a great conversation, you hit it off, you're like, oh, right. I don't want to charge them. But like, it just kind of like separates that whole feeling. Hey, like you said, go to the computer does this. It charges you $44 bucks.
I did the same thing for a long time. I would say, hey, go and think about it. And then I'd get the call and they'd say, hey, we want to apply. Now, where do I go back and get that check? I don't carry like a credit card processor on me to say, okay, give me your, I mean, I never collected my application fee prior to this. This does it all for me.
Yep. So we can find you at rentperfect.com.
Yes.
And members, you can find them under the business associate section of our website. And then you also have a podcast, right?
We do. We put out a podcast, usually launches Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. We just cover, it is a nationwide podcast. Mm-hmm. So it just really covers, you know, we lean Arizona because we know Arizona quite a bit on that. But just yesterday we're talking about guns and can you, are you required, can you require them not to have guns, to have guns? What's your liabilities? We just talk about, all that good stuff on yesterday's podcast. Last week's podcast, I think that just launched yesterday, was about, is it time to invest or is it time to pull back? And we just talk about all kinds of different topics, not so much about screening and background checks. That gets a little boring after a while, but it's more just for an investor that maybe new or one that's been in the business a while and just wants to keep up on the changing economy, the changing regulations, the changing rules. And we usually keep them 15, 20 minutes. So they're not too taxing.
Okay.
But a lot of good topics there.
Love it, man.
Not as good as yours. Not as good as yours, Mike, but
Thank you, man. So yeah, and check out our episode with David as well. YouTube, all podcast platforms. That was a great hour. A lot of information, very helpful. This is gonna be replayed on our Facebook page. It's gonna be on our YouTube page, and we're gonna chop up all the golden nuggets you dropped and share it on social media as well. So
awesome. Appreciate it.
If you're watching, thanks for being here. David, thank you, man. I really appreciate you.
And we love houses, Mike.
Yes, we all do.
We'll see you later.
Awesome, take it easy. Bye, everybody.